In November.
I got my little volume LED to work again on my MacBook, so I'm a little bit nervous about its integrity. I took it to work today just because my work is so slow that I can't really, like... My work is so slow that I can't, what am I trying to say? My work is so slow that I don't have anything to do, so we're allowed to like be on our phones, but it looks better if we're on a laptop, so I bring my laptop and I just dick around. It's fun. Whoops. Oopsie. Sorry. Oh my god, I'm so sore. I am so sore. Like, it's not even remotely funny. I went to, a Fit for Less yesterday, like a gym, a cheap gym. And I go to the gym a lot, but I go to, like, a city gym, so it's not a nice quality gym. The rags that they have to like clean off the equipment are all like rusty. And they give us rags. They don't give us paper towel. They give us actual, like, not even rags, pieces of clothing. I guess that's kind of what rags are, but like it's literal chopped up pieces of clothing or fabric. And they just rewash them and then put them back in the bin, but like how thoroughly are those washed? Not very, because I'll pick some up and they're like stiff. It's disgusting, but that's a city gym. Also, half the machines are from the goddamn 1920s. Their hip thrust machine is so sticky that it like adds 10 pounds when I'm trying to lift it up because it sticks to the goddamn pole that's holding it. So I have the resistance of the stickiness as part of my workout, and I also have this, anyways, I could go on and on. Anyways, so I went to this new gym, and it's nice. But going to like a gym that has a lot more like young people in it, I didn't realize just how like full of testosterone it would be. And by that I mean, I walked in and I felt like the belle of the ball. Like I felt like eyes were on me, and it was simply because like this place was just so masculine that then there's me who doesn't give a fuck about trying to like not take up too much space, trying to stay in the women's sections. Oh, only doing female workouts. Like I don't give a fuck about that. So I was like, you know, up in men's business by being in the weightlifting section. And my friend was with me, and she was having nothing to do with that. But, like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'll just go because, like, we're all there to work out. We're all there because we have a goal in mind. So I'm just gonna do it. I didn't realize it'd be that big of a scene. So I go into my section, or my section. It is my section. I go into the, weightlifting section. And I've been going to the gym for a long time. I started out in women's only gyms because I was really self-conscious, and I got comfortable there. And then I started going to some co-ed gyms, but I was kind of turned off of it because I went to a high-end gym, which meant that there was a lot of rich people there, and there's just a lot of, really didn't like it. I wasn't feeling confident. But then I started going to my city gym, and it's just full of like old dudes and like, you know, some guys that have like these huge muscles, whatever, but they're all just like showing it to the other guys, and it's very like homoerotic, so I don't feel ever at all like self-conscious or like I'm being watched. It's like they're doing it for themselves. It's kind of great. So I do my thing at my gym, and no one ever is like looking. And to be honest, I think no one ever dares look. Oh, my light in the background isn't on. Let me fix that. But yeah, what am I saying? In conclusion, I'm putting my headphones on the wrong way. Yeah, so no one ever looks at me at my city gym, and I think they think I'm a bitch. Like, I think I come across cold, and like I'm not trying to make friends, because that's what I am. I am cold and not trying to make friends in the gym. I'm not like mean to anyone, but I just do my own thing, keep my head down, and I think that sometimes people like see that as an act of aggression, or maybe they just like are scared of me, so they stay away. But like, people don't talk to me at my gym. There was one time this dude came up and talked to me, and I was able to convince him to drive me home. This is when I didn't drive. I got him to drive me home, and I did not share any social medias with him. So I was the only one that benefited from that interaction. And he was very clearly like, you know, trying to like, you know, and I was like, I just used it. I just straight up was like, Oh, nice to meet you. Oh my gosh, wait, do you live in this area? No way, you should totally drive me home. Oh my gosh, are you leaving now? Great, I'm leaving now too, let's go. And then just didn't share any social media with him. He was nice. I just turned off one of my lights because I like this ambiance more. It feels more like uh comforting. I worked a really, really long day today. Long for me. And I have another long day tomorrow. I worked 10 a.m. to... God, I got 4 hours of sleep. It probably shows. I worked 10 to 3, and then I worked at my other job 4 to 9. And I clocked in at 3:30 instead of 4 because I just was there early and my friend needed me, so I was like, okay, sure. So yeah, I clocked in early, and so I really worked 11 hours? I don't know. Don't ask me to do math when I'm this tired. I think 11 hours feels right. I mean, no it doesn't. But I feel like that's probably the amount of time I worked. My feet are killing me. I got New Balances specifically for working retail because that's what I do all the time. And they're great and all, but like if you're working retail all the time, it's not going to be you know, it's all going to suck. Hi, welcome. Not so German antelope. So do I pronounce it Nuraduri? I feel like that's going to be a consistent thing for me, that people are going to come in with usernames and either A, because I'm tired, or B, because I'm stupid, I'm going to read them wrong. Because I used to stream and that was a consistent issue for me, so... I've thought about changing my YouTube username to be consistent with, like, my Twitch stuff. I've decided not to because... Just say Adder. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, means a lot. But yeah, I thought about changing because Apple juices them. Hurts my soul, bro. I just forgot to change it before I posted my video, and it really sucks because there's so many different options. I've gone through so many different aliases over my life. I won't name them, but I've gone through a lot, and a lot of them were cool. And this one that I have, like, landed on really sucks, but I feel like I can't change it at this point. Like, I'm just gonna have to take it and just roll with the punches, which is fine, you know. I'll be okay at the end of the day. But yeah. I worked a really long day, and I work long hours tomorrow as well, and so I won't be on for long, but I just need to say hi. You know, this is what fuels me. It fuels me to have this as part of my routine, to just take a second and hang out, and if my computer can fucking handle it, do some Roblox. Which it seemingly can't most of the time. But yeah, there was, I was gonna say something about the gym. Oh, just that I destroyed my legs, and then the next day after I destroyed my legs, I had to do, aka today, I had to do, like, an 11-hour shift, so, on 4 hours of sleep, so we'll see how long I can last. We'll see how long. I'm doing my best. I kind of wanted to watch some feminist like video essays and stuff like that, because I was thinking about it, and it's like there are certain things politically that, like, I just cannot understand, relate to. Like, for example, I'm not in the States, It's like, I don't know who is like in charge of what. I don't know what things do. Like our government runs differently. So I can't speak on that stuff because it will all be misinformation. Every single bit of it will be misinformation. You know, I can't speak on certain issues that I have not experienced or that I'm not passionate about. Like I feel like I'm relatively experienced talking about like even the male loneliness epidemic, because even though like I'm not that demographic, I just happen to have a like an overlapping interest. When you're interested in patriarchy, you just end up being interested in men's issues as well a lot of the time, because hey, hand in hand, you know? So anyways, I have a couple things queued up here. Some really like hold on. I have some people I love. Here. I have Jordan Teresa, which she is a great essayist. And I don't even know. I feel like I haven't seen her videos in a really long time. Oh, she literally she does voice notes now. What the hell? Where did I go? I recognize there's a stream stutter. I'm watching my feedback now, and it looks like the connection's back. Okay. I don't know, man. There's crazy stuff happening in my neighborhood. So maybe that's impacting it. But okay. Let's get into it, yeah. So last time my screen cap scene, I changed it to be just Roblox. So I'm gonna have to mess around with it a little bit. Screen cap. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Here, I'll change it to... Stop it. There we go. Nope, that's wrong. Yeah. This looks bad, though. Okay, I put a stupid filter on it, so I'm gonna take that off. Perfect. Why does it still look bad? Oh, my mouse is broken, I'm realizing. I am in fact realizing that. Huh. This is not helping. That'll be... I think that'll be okay. Okay! You're getting the raw, real stuff right now. Editing in real time. Okay, brilliant. Oh, I should probably turn off this lo-fi stuff, huh? Which I don't think you can hear, but that's okay, because I'll add this. Here we go. Brilliant. Just gonna check, make sure you can hear. You can hear. Perfect, okay. Me YouTubing male gaze. Okay, I kind of want to start with Jordan Teresa because she's my queen. That's why. Like, I haven't seen her stuff in literally forever, though.
Hey everybody, I hope you're all well and welcome back to Voice Notes with Jordan Teresa. How is everybody doing today? Coming at you from a slightly gloomy day, but I don't mind because I I just love doing this podcast so much, guys. I'm having such a fun time, and you guys seem like you're having a fun time too. Like, I feel like we, especially over on YouTube, if you listen to this on Spotify, still love you anyway, or Apple Podcasts or whatever major podcast platform. But I don't know, there's something about YouTube. It just feels like we've got a real community feel going on over here, and I just want to let you guys know. I won't harp on for this for too long because I know it's not the most entertaining thing in the world, but I just want to let you guys know that I'm really absolutely loving doing this so much. And thank you so much for all of the love on the recent episodes. Like, I'm so happy. I'm so glad that it's going down well. I'm so glad you guys are liking the consistency. Yeah, no, thank you guys so much. I'm having so much fun. If you ever have any episode suggestions, obviously leave them in the comments on YouTube and on Spotify. I read them all. But yeah, also love the positive response to my dream of becoming a dating columnist. Thank you.
I love how my spacebar doesn't do what I want it to do all the time. I'm pausing it because this is a podcast. And a podcast. See, I always do this. I always click on 50-minute videos, and then I look at it and I go, yeah, I don't have the time for that. I'm so sorry. This one's 19 minutes, and it's Tara Mookney. This is gonna be good.
November 2003, men's magazine Maxim published an article titled How to Cure a Feminist, with the byline, Turn an unshaven, militant, protesting vegan into an actual girl. And although the writing is tongue-in-cheek, I wouldn't say that it was purely satirical. Based on the cultural context, lads mags were the norm. Page 3 was all over the shop, literally. The article displays an early iteration of the bimbofication meme, where a woman transforms from a slovenly feminist, wearing ill-fitting jeans, no shoes, and showcasing her hairy pits, exclaiming, there'd be no more wars if all people were cut off. Then she slowly transforms into a slightly more feminized woman with her pink hoodie and now wearing shoes, stating, maybe you're not a bum like my absentee father, to a more cutesy look with pigtails stating, I think a man completes me, and then she reaches her final form, merely in lingerie, exclaiming, your chimera makes me so hot. And voila, she is cured. And even though I'm not the target audience for this article, I thoroughly enjoyed reading it, especially the part where they recommended planting the seed of lipstick feminism. Begin by discussing lipstick feminism, which is far more moderate than the combat boot variety. Sign her up for Bust, a feminist light mag that says women can be independent, strong, and relatively hairless. The point being, how a woman ought to look to attract a man is not a new thing. That being said, nowadays in our social media landscape, it's considered a more traditional outlook, and any free-thinking, independent modern woman would scoff at the idea of being told that she should look a certain way for a man. But what about being told how to not dress for men? Dressing in order to repel men. How about that?
I have something to say about this. I have something to say. Clothing like this is man repellent because it's not the male gaze, but there's something I've learned about being a woman in the world that has to do with this clothing that makes it like so dangerous. I know that if I were to wear here, what's another example here? Like dressing in any way like this, or in a way that stands out in general, women are not, like, people are shifty and they're gonna do dangerous things. So I think like clothing like this, like, yeah, you're not gonna get like hit on by like the typical kinds of dudes, but like you're gonna get like followed. You're gonna get followed, and that's not better.
Before I I advise you on how to dress for men, how not to dress for men, let me introduce myself. My name is Tara Mooney, and this is the only channel on YouTube where all videos are written and produced by a cow. She couldn't be in the video today because she's actually depositing her coin at the bank, but if you like and subscribe, she might appear in the next one. Speaking of banks, I've been getting a lot of robocalls pretending to be my bank, and not only is it midnight, including your names and aliases. Isn't that right, Siggy? Thank you, Incogni, for sponsoring. The year is 2024 and the girlies are on strike. Fashion strike.
Men hate my outfits. They're so mad that I'm not like hot like how I was in Uncut Gems. I hear that all the time, but I don't care because the girls love it. The girls and the gays.
This soundbite is from actress Julia Fox, known for Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems.
Right.
When she was interviewed on BBC Radio 4 Woman's Hour by Emma Barnett, proclaiming how she no longer dresses for the male gaze.
Whether I was realizing it or not, I think my appearance was very much to please the male gaze in a way. And then something happened. I don't know if it was motherhood or just being thrust into the public eye. And I was like, wait, I don't want to uphold this anymore. I want to dress for the girls.
I mean gaze, not gaze. The male gaze was coined by film theorist Laura Mulvey in 1973 as a shorthand describing gender dynamics on screen. The term is now used outside of film contexts, and well, I have some feelings about that. But anyways, back to man repelling. The term was invented by New York fashion writer Leandra Medine. Man repelling, she writes, is outfitting oneself in a sartorially offensive mode that may result in repelling members of the opposite sex. Such garments include, but are not limited to, harem pants, boyfriend jeans, overalls, shoulder pads, full-length jumpsuits, jewelry that resembles violent weaponry, and clogs. This description is from 2013, but I'd say the idea of what man-repellent garments are hasn't changed massively. The look is still largely more androgynous, even masculine, includes mishmash patterns, oversized clothing, clashing prints, and ultimately makes an I don't give a fuck statement.
So helping me get ready for the battlefield, I took these oversized army cargo pants. Don't forget your chunky heavy boots in case we need to kick anyone in the gonads. And playing on the perception that glasses make you appear smarter, a trait men really don't like, I make sure I wear these every single day.
What's the worst female fashion trend?
The fucking mom jeans that are fucking massive.
Ladies, if you're trying to go out on like a girls' night and just have fun with the girls and you want zero male attention, throw on the new baggy jean pants.
In an article from 2022, they described man-repellent clothing to be bucket hats, sportswear, prints, Ugg boots.
Okay, to be fair, bucket hats repel everyone.
Clothing to be bucket
This shit is this shit is not cute. Okay, here's the thing. I'm kind of only speaking for myself because I could probably find it. I only bought a bucket hat one time in my life and it was from Shein. Don't come for me. It was 2020. And it had this like teddy bear fabric. It's so ugly. I kind of want to take a look and see if I can find it. But like, this shit is everyone repellent. This is not just man repellent.
hats, sportswear, prints, Ugg boots, rainbow dressing, weird denim, frilly things, ballet pumps, silky scarves, and Gorp Girl attire, whatever that is. The sentiment from scarves and Gorp Girl attire, whatever that.
Gorpcore is a trend that focuses on sporty, utilitarian pieces that are made for embracing the outdoors. This camping chic aesthetic turns something that wasn't necessarily meant to be stylish, hiking, and high-performance gear into fashion. Okay.
That is. The sentiment from...
Oh, like cargo shorts. I used to work at the Home Depot, and I would wear cargo shorts all the time, and I was very man-repellent. Wearing Amazon men's cargo shorts all the time. Yeah. They did not want a piece of this. I'm gonna see if I can find that bucket hat.
2013 still stands. Good fashion is about pleasing women, not men. So as it happens, the trends that we love, men hate. And that is fantastic. And this is good, right? It's 2024 and who cares what men think?
Me leaving the house knowing men will hate my outfit.
Women should dress for themselves rather than trying to be pretty for men.
I don't dress for men, I dress for little girls who've been told at some point in their life that this is not a fashion show, and for old women drunk on their porch.
And even though fashion seems like a woman's remit, with more than 85% of students at top fashion schools being female, but only around 14% of the top 50 fashion brands are run by women. Whether it's on a subconscious level due to beauty standards or on a literal level because of men running fashion, men still have more say on what we wear than they should, frankly. And the way to resolve it is to actively fight against it. And yes, true, I agree with that, what I just said, because I said it. However, I've got a bone to pick with the female gaze. Again, I must reiterate, female gaze, not female gaze. The male gaze is an established concept and is easy to spot. Assuming you believe in gender, sex essentialists still exist and they're as uncurious as ever. The term male gaze became popularized in relation to the depiction of female characters in films, how often they are overly sexualized, not given agency, and exist only as objects of male desire. This experience extends to how women are viewed in society and how relentlessly we are sexualized against our will in public spaces. Margaret Atwood, in The Robber Bride, said it best: as you are a woman with a man inside watching a woman, you are your own voyeur.
I was literally talking about that quote with my friend like yesterday, because she is going through it right now. She's like struggling with the idea of I feel like a lot of the time as a woman sometimes, and it's possible this is also a male experience, but we start to feel like maybe a relationship or maybe something like that is going to happen, and we've kind of been told our whole lives, like, you know, through Disney princess movies and through, hey, Barbie, through anything really, that like the end goal, the happily ever after, is you're with a man. So in the back of our minds, we're kind of always working towards this goal. A lot of us, whether we know it or not, or even if we feel like we've defeated it or not, we still have this end goal of like Prince Charming. And so because of this, sometimes we get a little too ready to settle when we meet anyone. And so yeah, she was going through it because she she like met someone and it wasn't working out, and her like whole dreams and worlds were crushing, and so she was getting really into feminist stuff and into, you know, talking about this stuff. And there was this experience I had when I was I was working at the Home Depot. What a wild experience, by the way, as a woman working at Home Depot. It was humbling. Like, I really thought that I had a lot of confidence in myself and in my gender, and I never really saw any issues with like in workplaces or anything like that, because I just worked like fast food. But then I went to the Home Depot, and it was, they prided themselves in their ability to like be to include women, and how so many women work there. Like, a woman hired me and there's so many women managers. But then when I started working there, they put me in seasonal, which is the garden center. And throughout my entire time working there, I wanted to work lumber, I wanted to work lighting, I wanted to work some other department as well. I wanted to be trained in another department so I could work both of them. They never did it for me. I asked so many times. I was hired with people, like, there were people who were hired with me and some after me who got forklift certified, and I never did. Like, I asked so many times and they just simply like were guys. Like, that was literally the difference. So that experience was wild and very humbling. Can't stay for long, but W title, thanks. I love seeing your name once a day. It's really been lovely. But yeah, it was a crazy experience to like, I had never really seen myself as a victim of my gender until I had worked at the Home Depot. And I had a lot of great times, but like there was one time where one of my coworkers, I love to give gifts, and so I was anytime there was one time where I was making these gifts for all of my coworkers, and a lot of my coworkers are guys. They were handmade, hand-sewn masks. Glad to see you continuing your journey here. Every day, baby, every day. And you know what? You know what makes it easy? Is liking doing it. Simply. And I like doing this, so keep coming back. But yeah, I was making these handmade masks because it was COVID time. And I didn't realize that they're not really that effective. I had bought these filter inserts for them, so they were probably a little bit more effective, but still not great. So I sewed these masks together, and I made them like all custom designs to all the different people in my department, and I personalized them. I wrote like little notes in pen on the inside of like just things that I like about those people. So for like one of my coworkers, I wrote for her like, you know, I love how blah blah blah. I love how like we spend so much time together. I was just trying to be cute, and I did this for everyone, like everyone in my department. One of the guys in my department saw this note, and he was Home Depot radicalization arc, literally. He saw the note I wrote on the inside, and he was going through a rough time during this time, so I wrote him like a note that was like, you know, hang in there, or like you're strong, or something like that, because I was just trying to be cutie. And like the next day, one of the other guys who works there, like one of the douchiest guys that works there, came up to me and was like, I heard you have a crush on so-and-so, and we'll call him Leo. I heard you have a crush on Leo, and I was like, why would you think that? Well, you gave him a note in like a gift. I'm like, yeah, I gave everyone that gift. And from then on, like people would come up to me and they would say this to me all the time. All of a sudden, because I did this like nice thing, I was perceived by this like rumor that he was spreading, and it was so bizarre to me because if he had made gifts for his bros, or even for like, you know, everyone in the group, and then he gave some to some girls, I don't think it would have spread as or taken over his personality as much as it took over mine. Where like I went from being like the girl in seasonal to being the girl has a crush on Leo. It's like it was that quick. Like all of a sudden I was centered around him, and I was so pissed off because I was like, what happened? Like I had friends who viewed, and they still obviously were friends with me, but like I was known in this department, in this place, as like being myself, and then all of a sudden I did this thing, he interpreted it wrong, and now that's who I am. I am this thing that he interpreted wrong. And I felt so powerless to it, like no matter what I said. And it really did feel like, as soon as, because I was not interested in anything like that at the time, I was just working at the Home Depot. Nothing against Home Depot dudes, it was just not what I was looking for at the time, so I was just doing my own thing. And he took over. He took over my I think that it had already probably been noticed that like I was not really interested in anyone, and people were moving on and seeing me for who I was. But then as soon as this thing came up, it was like, oh my god. And it was terrible. And it was like a huge part of the reason why I ended up leaving, because people just couldn't get over it. They could not get over it. And it was so frustrating. I was like, I did it for everyone. Like everyone got this. But yeah, he just totally. And then the next time I saw him, like the next couple times I saw him, he was just it was so uncomfortable because I was pissed off. He was like acting like uncomfortable, and it was just terrible. But that was like the first time when I was like starting to think about my gender and how that plays a role, because it did all of a sudden seem like as soon as I was perceived as like this like doting girl who's like in love and like giving people notes, and not just like someone who's trying to do a good deed or someone who's trying to make someone's day better, like it did feel like I was being very harshly stereotyped. Office gossip is super toxic. Yes. The center of social gravity just moves to the closest man is the lesson I'm getting from this. And you know what? I'm still learning this lesson, because I feel like I still feel this all the time, but this is part of the reason why, like, I have never been especially interested in feminism. It's just something that follows me. Like, I wouldn't call myself a feminist. I just am, because it follows me. Because wherever I go, I see it. Whatever I do, I see it. And it's annoying as hell, and I wish it would go away. I wish it would go away. But yeah, I have definitely noticed that, like, I mean, it gets better when I think, like, I'm in right now, my field of study is female dominated. So I feel like it's so strange, because I feel like, there still is like, now the social gravity has changed a lot, because there is a disproportionate amount of women to men. So now in general, like, people will immediately believe women more so, which is a bonus. But there's still this weird issue of, like, if it's a female dominated industry or workplace or whatever, and there's like one dude, like, he becomes like God. And it's so strange. Like, and sometimes they, they're fine people, so it's like, it's not the end of the world, but it's something I've noticed, where, like, in that situation, like, when there's a woman in a male dominated field, they are not seen the same way. I don't know, it's hard to describe. I'm learning this in real time, but I have noticed that where when I'm in these women dominated fields, where the men in that field will still become like the center of the universe somehow. And I think it's because there's also an element of rarity as well that is really so annoying. so annoying. And, like, it's just something that I constantly notice. Like, you'd think going into a field where it's female dominated that you would see less of it, but in fact it becomes like where, like, yeah, there's almost like there's still the hierarchy. So if the hierarchy is men and then women, and there's a lot of guys, it doesn't feel too off balance. But when there's one dude and then there's women, there's still like a little bit of this happening. So then this guy is like up on this pedestal, and all these girls are down here, and it's just so strange. Also, not to go on too much of a tangent, I won't say what I'm studying, but I'm studying this thing where it is a very noble thing to go into, but it's female dominated. And I didn't know, when I was engineering, some guys would do everything to get close to girls in the class. Yeah, exactly. And oftentimes, like, that's normal. And I'll get into that. Like, in my field, it's female dominated. But there is a weird dynamic that makes it so that guys are able to be creepy, and it's like kind of accepted, and it's really hard to describe without me telling you what it is, but it's just a very hyper specific dynamic. And because of the naivete and the female dominated aspect of it, these guys come in with all this experience, and they tell us to network, and networking is very important. We're told by female female teachers and stuff like that, and people in position of power up to do that, to network, and networking is very important. Your connections are very important. All of this is very important. Meanwhile, the people that are being exposed to us in our naive learning environment are a lot of the time predatory in one way or another. Either they're pushy and creepy and have ulterior motives, or it's much more sinister than that. And this is like 2025. Like, I don't know what, sometimes I don't even know what I was expecting. Like, I feel like I go into the world and I expect that people are like, that's a thing of the past, and that like the things that happen modern day are like nowhere near as bad. And then I go into the world and I'm like, no, it is literally still that bad. Like, it is. And it's like really not at all as fixed as I was hoping it would be by the time it was my turn. You know what I mean? So yeah, like in my how did I get here? Who is this? Well, welcome to the chat. You've kind of entered into a lot, but you've entered into a kind of heavy topic, but I feel like it's very common that people get, and not even just in my field, like my field is very hyper specific, so I feel like it has a very fragile, very, very specific dynamic. But I feel like, you know, this could be possible for nursing. It could be possible for social work, any kind of field where it's relatively female dominated, where like you're learning, your teachers are teaching you, and there's also an element of networking that's very important. But it's also like a noble career where you're kind of expected to do whatever it takes for your client, however that client comes to you, where it's like it's very predatory. Like the teachers, the people in the network, the people at the very, very, very top, people who you have to talk to in order to talk to someone else, like these are all like the most predatory people, and there's kind of like nothing you can do about it. Like, you could take down the system, but like but ultimately you are in a noble career, so it's like kind of, you don't want to destroy the system because it's necessary. Anyways, this is quite the tangent, but I feel like this is something I think about a lot. Like, these dynamics I think about a lot because I'm experiencing it in real time, and it's eye-opening, and it's terrible, and I just need to rant about it, you know. I need people to see it and to be able to relate. You know what? Actually, I'd prefer they didn't, to be honest. I prefer people to be like, no, your field of work is crazy. I'm a nurse. That doesn't happen with what I do. And then I'll be like, gotcha. Okay. I would like that to be the case, because then I can just shift gears. But anyways, let's get back to this video. Here, let me throw this back up. Here we go. This is, by the way, Tara Mukni, and it's The Female Gaze Isn't Real. And she just read this quote that says, as you are a woman with a man inside, as you are a woman with a man inside, okay, hold on, I think it was written wrong. You are a woman with a man inside watching a woman. You are your own voyeur. Which is very true, by the way. This is my experience.
The female gaze, on the other hand, is trickier to nail down. In simple terms, it portrays women with agency and substance, unlike the typical one-dimensional male gaze. Think the Bechdel test, which tests representation of women in film. So whether a piece of media has at least two female characters have a conversation about something other than a man. Much like the male gaze, which was intended for film theory, the female gaze has transcended film criticism and has become a zeitgeist term, much like queerbaiting. And once we use these terms for real people, problems occur. Queerbaiting is when a piece of entertainment uses queer imagery and teases LGBT plus representation without fulfilling its promise. So basically, it's a form of performative representation without delivering actual meaningful representation. I don't like using the term queerbaiting for real people. Not one bit. It forces people out of the closet because when they're accused of queerbaiting, when they're not, they then come out to defend themselves before they were ready to share it. And it reinforces heteronormative ideals about how people should look. Getting angry with Harry Styles for wearing a skirt but in a straight way kind of reinforces the idea that men shouldn't dress a certain way and have to be stereotypically masculine, right? That being said, acting like he's a cultural revolutionary for wearing a skirt is equally silly. But I digress. Back to the female gaze. It is often defined by negation, i.e. what it is not.
Fairness makes me think about how gender relationships shape social dynamics, especially when it comes to less mature people. I wonder how this connects class or not. I wonder how this connects class or not. Yeah. I wonder too, and I say that because I am so tired. I say that because I am very tired. It's homophobic to assume that Sherlock Watson should not have been portrayed as a queer couple. I don't know anything about Sherlock, so I'll take your word for it. But yeah. I think with maturity, it's very interesting. Like, I have this one friend who's, like, a security guard, and he's great. Like, he is very mentally mature, and he, like, I don't feel any of the issues I felt with my other male friends. I have a lot of male friends like this, where I don't feel these issues. And, they're not even, like, advocates. They're not even, like, people who are, like, allies. They're just people who get it. Like, they just have that sense. And so Chatter, you are throwing me off so bad. You are throwing me off so bad. I'm gonna put you on a timeout, because what are you even talking about? Okay. I feel like yeah, like, there's a level of maturity. Like, I have this one guy friend where he's, like, still a little bit, like, he still does it a little bit. He's not perfect yet, but he's, like, 30. So he's, like, kind of aged out of it a bit, and it's better, but yeah. And, yeah, I haven't thought about it in connection to class. Wow. What an educational Friday evening. Friday midnight. What an educational midnight Friday.
It's not about what men want. It's not dressing for men. So the fashion girlies are attempting to define it.
From what I've observed, and in my opinion, I think a man-repellent outfit is something that sits outside of what the male gaze deems as sexy or attractive. It can be things that are either typically described as matronly, masculine. Think of every TikTok you've ever seen of a man saying what he doesn't like on a woman, typically being asked by another male interviewer. Those items. In these interviews, I've seen them yap about anything from maxi skirts to mom jeans to docks to Birkenstocks to hating girls that are just into that star sign stuff, bows, anything. I've seen it all. I would say that this aesthetic, if you could even call it that, comprises of a lot of those pieces because girls do enjoy wearing them, and the purpose isn't necessarily to just be attractive.
And
okay, I have something very important that I need to drop on you guys. Okay? And it's about star signs. I am not a star sign girly. I think they're cool. I don't believe in them. But Dr. K, he did a great video on astrology that I want to bring up. It's called Why Women Are Right About Astrology. And I love this so much. I love this video so much. Okay, not to interrupt a female voice to replace it with a male voice talking about women issues. Let's go back to Tara. We're so close, you know? We're so close. We're so close to the truth.
A range of results, but my favorite by far is dressing to intimidate men. Now that is how you repel men.
This is the ultimate male repellent formula. Because whenever I go out in public dressed like this, no man dares to approach me because they genuinely all think I'm a witch or something.
My critique of the female gaze is not a knee-jerk, well, you say it's not about men, but you're thinking about men in this whole thing, so ha, aren't I clever? Because that misses out important context. This is a response to aeons of beauty expectations on women.
If you're looking for outfits to repel men, you've stumbled on the right video. We're going to start off with a pair of black.
My sister, you see that Dr. K video? Let's do it. I really do want to show it. Sorry, Tara. I am promoting the patriarchy right now. But I love Dr. K. She would feel so validated. Okay, this video is incredible. I love it so much. And it is 43 minutes. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but he does a great job.
Today, we're going to talk about why women believe in astrology. So I see this question get asked all the time, right? So, and people will come up with all sorts of answers. So there's like the top answer on Quora. And the first thing that I noticed about these answers is that they're usually dudes. And usually like the answers, the instant someone says they believe in astrology, I can't take them seriously anymore. They're both forms of looking for control and meaning in life when it becomes clear that there's a lot that we can't control and that doesn't mean anything.
Just like a belly dancer, not get hit on. I feel like if you dressed like that girl dressed like sort of like that pirate core, or even like that crazy over sexualization, you're not going to get people coming up and asking for your number because they're too scared. But you might get crazy people or people who are the people that you don't make eye contact with when they get on the bus with you. Like those people will probably come up and say hi. So, you know, there's a little give and take there. You give you take, you know, the fact that people don't ask you for your number, but you give the fact that people are now gonna touch you without asking at all. So that's my experience. Oops.
So the most common things that I tend to see are, first of all, people will ask this question: why do women believe in astrology? And then the most common answer is it's a way of like making certainty out of uncertainty, which is like fair enough. I think it's a valid opinion. But I have a different take on why women believe in astrology, and that's really simple. It's because it works. And it's like, oh, Dr. K, I expected better of you. Like you're espousing such pseudoscientific concepts. I can't believe that you're saying that astrology is working. Like, oh my God, like how could you say that? That's insane. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to talk to y'all for a second about anti-vaxxers. When you talk to an anti-vaxxer, do they know how vaccines work? Like, do they understand the methodology or system behind which vaccines produce their efficacy? Generally speaking, the answer is no. Second thing is when you ask an anti-vaxxer, like, you know, like, why do you believe what you believe? They'll say like, oh, like vaccines are, I've done my research, right? This is a big thing that they'll say. I've done my research, like I know. And what the research turns out to be is like reading stuff on the internet. So if you're someone who's like, oh my God, Dr. K, what do you mean astrology works? This is insane. It's pseudoscience. There's no science behind it. So my first question to you is, do you understand the system of astrology? Like, have you studied astrology? Do you understand the theory behind it? Do you understand supposedly how it works? Have you read any science behind it? Have you actually done any research? Have you either conducted trials yourself or read peer-reviewed publications around astrology? And even if you've read peer-reviewed publications, do you understand the methodology of astrology well enough to apply a critical lens to a scientific study on astrology so that you know, oh, this is a high quality study on astrology, this is a low quality study on astrology? So if you haven't done those things, then I'm going to sort of put you in the same credibility camp as an anti-vaxxer, which I know is a strong and bold statement to make. My point is that if we're going to be like truly open-minded and skeptical about things, we should be open-minded, critical, and skeptical of our own beliefs, where they come from, and whether the belief is born of like a general common sense view or is actually the result of...
I think I'm legit too woke for anti-men clothing to work on, lol. Yeah, I'm not. I dress the way I like to dress. I feel like there's a bit of like, for me, if I were to center anti-men in my clothing, I feel like I would inherently be centering men. I'm not saying that's the way for everyone, but I feel like if I were to be intentionally dressing to repel men, a man is still included in that equation. Like, I'm still considering what a man would think of me in dressing. And maybe that could be, sorry to cut her off, that might be the point she's getting to in the video, but like, ultimately, even anti-men clothing, if I were to do it, I would still be, like, centering men, because I would still be thinking about them. I'd still be putting them in my decisions. I feel like I've gotten to a point, and I've been like this way for a long time, where like, yeah, like, I think about what makes me look good and what makes me, you know, look my best. But if I were to specifically try to dress to repel men, I would still be thinking about them more than when I just put on clothes normally. So I just don't, like, I'm not gonna do that. I don't have enough time in the day to care about what men don't want me to look like. You know, like, I worked a 11-hour shift today. Okay? I don't want to think about what men don't want me to look like.
A critical and scientific thought process that then follows, that ends up with a conclusion. Today's video is going to be about astrology. We're going to talk about the science of astrology. We're going to talk about astrology from a lot of different perspectives. First thing to understand is that astrology is not homogenous. That's kind of like saying, okay, like, do you believe in science? So, like, science can say all kinds of things. Not all science is even scientific. Over 50% of studies, scientific studies that are done, are not reproducible. There are mistakes that make in science. Science has made all kinds of conclusions. So a great example of this is we discovered this great medication for nausea that we gave to people with cancer called thalidomide. And man, did thalidomide work great. So we were like, oh my God, thalidomide is awesome. It was FDA approved, fantastic medication. And then, you know, we made the mistake as doctors of giving it to another group of people who is very nauseous, which are pregnant women. And then their babies started getting born without arms or legs. So then we stopped using thalidomide. So science makes a lot of mistakes, does a lot of things really well. So there are all kinds of different methodologies, and I don't think all astrology is the same. So if there's no quality control, like, how do you know whether the astrologer that you're talking to is a good astrologer or a bad astrologer? Now you may say, but Dr. K, there's no such thing as a good astrologer because it's all BS. So that is like an a priori conclusion, right? You'll get that? So, like, let's not do that. If there's no quality control for the field, what would that do to the credibility of the field as a whole? Generally speaking, it's going to tank it. And that used to happen in medicine, by the way. So if you go back, you know, like 100 or 200 years, like, people wanted to avoid doctors like the plague because there was no quality control of the practice of medicine. They were like bleeding people and making, you know, giving people like cocaine and opiates and all this kind of stuff all the time. So when there's no like system of regulation, it's going to make sense that astrology as a whole, as a field, may not be very credible. The second thing is that we're going to tunnel down into what is BS and what isn't. So if y'all are people who love astrology and you're like, oh my God, Dr. K is going to be like pro astrology, you may be in for a little bit of a shock, because what we're going to talk about today is highly technical. If y'all want to dive deep into the most important topics for our community, check out HG memberships.
No,
the first thing to understand is that all the way down.
you.
It's not control years once a month at health. Today, I'm going to use the full suite of my training
Don't hear
at
a
Harvard
difference on your
Medical
end?
School when I was at this place.
Oh, this'll probably be why, hey? Does this seem like it might be the reason why? Damn it. God damn it. Okay, let's see. We can blast my eardrums.
It's called the OSHA Research Center,
A little bit.
studying evidence-based complementary and alternative medicine. So when I was a research assistant there, learned so much about the way that science is done. So when we're trying to study things like meditation, one of the biggest problems with studying meditation is that many of the people who will design trials, actually this is less true of meditation, but we look at alternative medicine. Acupuncture is a great example. A big problem with the trials on acupuncture is that they are designed by people who do not understand acupuncture. So if you design a trial to study something, but you do not understand what you are studying, the trial can essentially have a false negative. So I'll give you just a simple example. So one of the studies on acupuncture that I was reviewing many years ago used something called a collapsible needle. So acupuncture is when you poke someone on these meridians, like with a needle, right? So someone was like, okay, I know, I'm going to evaluate acupuncture by comparing the needle insertion to something called a collapsible needle, which is when I poke them, instead of the needle piercing the skin, it's going to collapse up. It's like a fake sword, basically. So it never pierces the skin. It just collapses into the top half of the needle thing, if that kind of makes sense. And so they sort of found that, okay, when I use collapsible needles versus real needles, the effects are roughly the same. So they said, therefore, acupuncture doesn't work. Well, when I talked to people who were acupuncturists and also researchers in this place called the Harvard Medical School, they were like, yeah, this is not a great study. And I asked, why is that? And they said, well, there's this thing called acupressure. They're still exerting some kind of force on these meridians. So when you exert some kind of force on these meridians, the needle doesn't need to penetrate the skin. It's the activation of those points on the meridians, which potentially a collapsible needle can do anyway. You're still using all the right points. A better way to study acupuncture would be to you can poke people, but poke people along meridians and then poke people in random places. This is a better way to design a study that tests the veracity of acupuncture, because then what we're actually doing is the physical intervention is the same. We're getting insertion of the skin. What we're really testing then is if you poke people with needles along a meridian or along life energy or whatever versus along random places, does it create differential effects? This would be a better way to study acupuncture. So my point here is that anytime you want to study something, if you have poor understanding of what you are studying, the value of the trial that you design, the design of the trial is going to be so messed up that irrespective of what your trial finds, the findings are kind of questionable because the design is poor. Now, the opposite is also true, where if y'all are familiar with research, you may know this, where if you understand what you are studying really, really, really well, you can design a really shady trial to artificially create a verified scientific understanding. So a great example of this is studies on selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. I'm a psychiatrist. I prescribe these things. These are things like Prozac, fluoxetine, citalopram.
I'm only pausing because, like, would.
Escitalopram, right? So what we basically now know through lots of meta-analyses is that there were a lot of early trials done on SSRIs, which found a really, really strong effect. But then after we do 40 years of post-market research and we do things called meta-analyses, what we tend to discover is that a lot of the therapeutic value of SSRIs is actually placebo effect. Some studies show that up to 70% of the value of SSRIs is non-pharmacologic. It is something like a placebo. So my point is that it is possible for us to design a set of trials which show an amazing effect, and then also after time do retrospective analysis on outcomes and discover that the effect is not nearly as big as we thought. So when we're looking at scientific studies, just because a scientific study shows something doesn't mean that it's true. And just because a scientific study shows that something is false doesn't mean that the scientific study is correct. Right?
I'm skipping ahead just to the point.
Things that are in the patient's subconscious mind to the surface. Basically what we'll do is we'll splatter ink and then we'll fold something in half and it's basically a mirror image, okay? Now, there's no intrinsic value to the ink blot. The ink blot doesn't mean anything, right? There's no hidden message in it. But when we take a human mind and we show it some neutral thing, what is dormant in the mind comes out. Okay, so I'm going to show y'all like an example of like a projective image here, okay? So when you look at this image, what do you see, right? So like this is where like the image is purposely vague. So like some people may say like when I look at this, I see someone who's overdosed over here and a woman who has just found that their husband has overdosed. But the point is that like what I see in this image doesn't have a lot to do with the image. It has a lot to do with what's in my mind. So when I look at this image, what do I see? This looks creepy AF. Right? So is this someone who's harnessing a kidney or is this someone who's like performing a surgery? So like, what is this? Like, what do y'all see when I show you this? Is this a grandfather who is like maybe patting their son's forehead or a grandson's forehead? Or is this like an old man who is stealing a child's soul? My point is that these are what projective tests are. So there's no intrinsic value to the image, right? There's no like, There's nothing in the image that says one thing or another, but there is absolutely a validated scientific way to take something that has no intrinsic value and use it as a tool to help human beings understand themselves, their fears, their conflicts, what they should be worried about, right? So like, you know, in life that you should be worried about particular things. You know, you have particular weak points, particular vulnerabilities. How do we take all those subconscious thoughts and bring them to the surface? So at a minimum, I think astrology can be scientifically useful, even psychologically useful, as something like a projective test. In this way, I think Myers-Briggs is another really good example of this. Some people have said that Ayurveda falls into this category, which I think I agree with. Like, so I think Ayurveda has a very projective component to it that can be absolutely useful. So this is where we have to be a little bit detailed, okay? A little bit precise. So the first thing is that astrology could have very real world value, could even have a scientifically validated level of value, right? Because projective tests have value, without the science itself being true at all. Now let's take a look at a couple of papers. Belief in astrology is a strategy for self-verification and coping with negative life events. This is a paper that's looking at like, why do people believe in astrology? So let's take a look at the discussion. The first hypothesis that exposure to astrological information verifies self-concept was largely supported, right? So this is a paper that's looking at basically like astrology is a way to confirm things about yourself. It's a way for people to
Projective text is a reason why I think poems work. I do them, and I find a good way of self-reflection. Yeah. Like, even... Like, I think that, well, first of all, the ones they showed, I kind of wanted to pause it and, like, look at them. Like, this one here, and, like, kind of discuss, like, what we actually see. I love that, because I think there's, like, I think a lot of us inherently, like, kind of want to hide. Like, and sometimes when people look at projective tests, like, it brings forward like a darkness they didn't know existed, like maybe an assumption they had that is like maybe not false, but like warped, or like I personally, I really do, I'm very interested in psychology and how like and how the mind stores trauma. Like how some people, I was reading, it's upstairs, I don't remember, I think it's called something Disaster Capitalism, Naomi Klein. Pretty common, like, political read, I think. And she was talking about how when the American government was torturing people by doing things like, well, they were doing like electric shock, but they were doing a lot more like psychological torture, where they were like keeping them in rooms with no windows and feeding them at different intervals so they wouldn't have any sense of time and things like that. It was very interesting how like the brain, some of these people fully like forgot that these things existed. Like they do not have any recollection that these things happened. Psychology is so interesting. You're actually fun for that. Well, I thought about studying psychology, but I am not smart enough, unfortunately. Missing a couple high school credits to study psychology, or psychiatry even. Dare I say psychiatry. But they were doing these trials where these people would be tortured and then would forget, but then like something would happen, like they would get a little shock from a plug, and they would like fully melt down, and they would not even remember melting down. Like their family and friends would remember and would remind them, and they just like literally don't remember. And so that is a protective mechanism of the brain that I think is so fascinating, and I want to know so much more about, because I think there's a lot of people that, like, for example, I think, let me get into it. I think that we as a people, okay, we adopt and we coexist with awful things that are inherently awful, but they're normal to us. Like the fact that we walk by people dying on the street all the time. Like, why do we do that? It's because our brains are able to sort of not remember. Like they're able to sort of compartmentalize and go, this is just a part of our everyday lives that we just have to exist to. There was a point in time where, like, you know, women and people of color and like all of this had to go through horrific things every day, and they did it. Like they did it. It wasn't pleasant. they found pleasant things to derive from their awful existences, but like the brain was able to stop these people from like just from always being in misery. You know, like I think there's a lot of things that we think are normal that are miserable that we just put up with. I worked 10 hours today. I made not a lot of money doing so. Yeah, like desensitization. Yes. I think so. But I think there's also like a desensitization that can be very targeted, dependent on the trauma. Friday night, people are drunk outside of my house. But I think there's like a level of desensitization that where it's like it can be focused, because how, like, at least we have an understanding. Like, I understand when I'm walking by, when I was like, 20 and I walked by like a corpse on the road. I literally walked by a corpse. I'm like, I know that and I remember that. But there's people that go through things and they don't. Their brain is able to understand that this is too much. Plus, a video recovered Trump invited Uncle Luke to a party at Mar-a-Lago with underage girls. I heard about a study a few months ago, and it showed how everyone, no matter how sad or happy you are, the brain always brought you back to this stable amount of happiness. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, I want to read this study, to be honest. I want to read this study. Send it to me. But like, I think that's so fascinating, and I think that dude, it's crazy. I don't read very often, but when I do, I'm like I'm reading, I'm fully understanding, I'm stopping with every single word I don't understand. What does microcosm mean? Now I'm Googling it. Now I understand. Now I feel happy. Now I know a big word. Now I can use this big word in my everyday existence, and I can use it in my vocabulary now. I do that when I'm watching Hassan. He'll say a big word, and I'm like, what does that mean? And then I look it up and I go, we're on the same page. We are understanding. We're speaking the same language. But yeah, I think that's, I love talking about how the brain processes trauma. Because I think a lot of people go through things when they're young, like whether that's repetitive child abuse that they don't recognize because it's just normal. I mean, I don't want to get too dark, but there was this one, I think it was oh gosh, not Miranda Cosgrove, Jeanette McCurdy. She was talking about, unfortunately I don't know where the article went, shame. Okay. But it was Jeanette McCurdy, I think it was Jeanette McCurdy, who was saying that when she was a kid, her dad would chase her mom around with a knife, and they would like laugh and watch. Like the kids would laugh. And it was like, yeah, because when you're a kid, your brain is developing, you're learning what's normal. You're learning that's normal. And I think there's a lot of things that we learn as normal really, really early on that we don't question. Like, we learn social rules. We learn, how to wash ourselves. And then some people find out as adults they've been doing it wrong. And they're like, their lives are flipped upside down, and it's the people who raised them. It's like, that's how that happened. Like, it's literally you get taught something and you don't question it ever. But yeah, let's get back to astrology. I could go on forever about that.
Understand themselves a little bit better. The second thing that we can look at is belief in astrology has previously been related to cognitive biases and personality traits such as intolerance of ambiguity and a greater need for information that reduces uncertainty about self and others. So this is another kind of very common point that a lot of people will say, is that astrology is a tool that helps people manage anxiety and uncertainty. So we see some scientific evidence for that, okay? So when we were looking at these responses on the internet, and people were like, yeah, like astrology, like there's no real technical stuff to it, but it helps people soothe themselves, it helps people deal with uncertainty, it helps people learn about themselves, like that's why it's useful. But we can go a little bit deeper. So we can look at things like dissertations. So this is understanding the psychological significance of astrology in millennial women's lives. So here's what Dr. Floyd discovered. All participants expressed a defensive position regarding astrology that justified a complex reason for its use. So the way that I understand that is people, like when you ask people, why do you believe in astrology? They're like, it's because this really complicated thing, right? No one's saying like, oh, like there's a stigma against astrology, basically. So anytime you ask people why they believe in it, they get defensive and they come up with some complicated thing. Pretty interesting, consistent with what I would think. A theme of astrology being psychologically beneficial emerged in that the use of astrology levies an intrapersonal...
Detour and detour, this is how knowledge is built. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like I have a lot of groundwork to make sometimes because I feel like I've spent a lot of my life like not questioning anything and just watching a lot of YouTube, watching like PewDiePie or whatever, like as a kid, and just not like thinking things through. And so the older I get, the more I want to like just, the more I discover. And it's lovely and it's nice and it's better than YouTube, I would argue. Kind of off topic, but a podcast of you just talking would be so cool. That's very sweet of you. And also kind of what I'm doing right now. Kind of with Dr. K as my special guest. And you guys. I don't know what I would talk about, to be honest. And I feel like I would have to feel like the world is in a podcast deficit before I would, you know, be able to morally agree and feel whole committing to a podcast. But yeah, I've thought about it. There's this one podcast I really love by Maddie Drosbeck, and it's just her. And people who do podcasts by themselves, mad respect, because you have to really just have a lot to say. And you have to have a lot of thoughts and opinions. But she does this really great podcast where it's all about her dating experience, and she talks about how it is to be a plus size person on like dating apps and how she's trying to find people who don't fetishize her. But she also talks about being like never having a boyfriend and that experience, but also like never settling. And it's just a really great experience where she also gives advice to her viewers. I love her content because she's just so thoughtful and she's so for the girls. I think that's the best way to describe her. She's definitely for the girls, and she's also like a film mate. I think she has a bachelor in film or something like that. So her videos, her podcast is very well framed. But if you watch her like YouTube videos, they're like cinematography, bro. Like she goes all out, and it looks so good, and it's very cozy. And so if I ever need just like a comforting person to listen to, I always listen to her. So highly recommend if you don't already know her.
Highly individualized sense of self-cohesion. So this is pretty consistent with that other research that we looked at that looks at kind of self-concept in astrology. Now this is, I think, this is why I'm including the paper. I thought this finding was really interesting. Participants expressed how astrology brings an interpersonal community or shared identity that is conducive to compassion and connection. So on the one hand, astrology has a large stigma against it, and everyone's like, oh my God, why do women believe in astrology? And on the other hand, there's this dissertation looks at, and I think this is consistent, I've seen other research that supports this, that astrology forms a way for us to allows a way for us to form connections with other people, right? Because there's the pro-astrology people and there's the anti-astrology people.
Wait, that actually sounds so cool. Check her out. Maddie Drosbeck. Actually, it's her curse. Her name is impossible to understand how to spell, so I'm going to spell it here. Uh-oh. I think that's how it's spelled. I typed it into chat. A friend told me in relation to parents stuff and early learning, parents aren't parents anymore, the internet is now. Which is what I think happened to me in a sense. Not completely, though. Yeah, I was raised by the internet. I am a baby that came from PewDiePie and Tobuscus. And maybe some Minecraft YouTubers, if I was unfortunate enough. You know? So... like, it's interesting because, like, I think sometimes my parents, they talk to me and it's like, part of my personality is definitely from the fact that the internet did raise me. And so they have this sort of, like, fascination of who I've become, where it's sort of like, you know, but I think that for better and for better and for worse, there was a lot of stuff I learned through the internet that, like, for example, I, from a very young age, had this core belief in myself that, like, that my thoughts and opinions mattered, because I always watched people who believed their thoughts and opinions mattered. You know what I mean? Like, and I had never had it, like, not never, but, like, none of these people were reinforcing it to me that my thoughts and opinions mattered. But the fact that, you know, I'd watch people who would just talk and they wouldn't be interrupted and they wouldn't, you know, they'd be able to fully flesh out their thoughts without any kind of disturbance, I think did alter some, like, my own confidence in my own speaking ability. Like, little things like that, you know? I feel like we can do so much more online, and that we can be so much more open online, and that would kind of influence us, especially because we're in a vulnerable state. Yeah, we're learning. We're learning everything for the first time. We're learning how to make friends. We're learning what is funny. What's funny to my friends. And then you're watching, you know, 40-year-olds, you know, make jokes on the internet. They weren't 40 at the time. You're watching 30-year-olds make jokes on the internet while playing Minecraft, and you go, that's funny. And so now you start adopting that kind of sense of humor. You're bringing that to your friend group. Maybe it works. Maybe you stick out and you're weird and no one likes to hang out with you because you make jokes like a 30-year-old Minecraft YouTuber. But yeah, I turned red because of the internet. Second thought, it changed my entire life. Oh, is I turned red because of the internet a second thought vid? Because I'll watch it. Not today, though, because I have to work an 8-hour shift tomorrow, and I need to be mindful of my time. I thought for a second you were making a commentary about how red I've become during the streaming process. I don't have any blush on. That's just me. That's just me. That's just what happens when you're really tired and passionate at the same time. Anyways, this is an awful Dr. K pause. I have to save him from this.
And if I'm being ostracized by these, like, people who are like, oh, it's pseudoscience, even though, like, let's remember, what is their understanding of astrology, right? So when you say, oh yeah, astrology is BS, are these the kinds of papers that you're looking at? Like, when you conclude that astrology is all bullshit, this is what you're talking about, right? Or are you referring to, like, these random columns that say, oh, your sun sign says this, therefore there'll be a dark stranger in your future, right? Y'all are familiar with all that. You know what that stuff meant. That's what you mean, right? So in this dissertation, it talks about how...
Look how cheeky he is. He knows he's pissing off so much of his audience by doing this video, and it's so funny. Like, he's got this, like, look throughout the video where he's like, I know, you think I'm crazy. I turned red because of the internet. I'm not asking you to play it, just commentary. It's okay. Like, I don't mind. You can request I play things. I may or may not. I don't mind adding education to my queue. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind building a queue necessarily. I mean, I won't for today, simply because, again, most of what I'm saying, I am not even thinking a full sentence ahead of when I start saying it, which means it's been a long day. So that's going to impact my ability to give commentary. But I missed you guys. I missed you. And I thought, okay, I did actually have this thought. I thought, how funny would it be if I went live at my workplace? I went, no, I can't do that, but that'd be kind of funny. I did think about it, because I work a job where I'm not doing a lot. I'm really not. I don't wear a name tag. I'm not doing a lot. I could probably do it. Do a little extra Emily moment. I have thought about it. I wouldn't do it. I'm getting crazy. No, full screen.
Oh, astrology is a method of being able to form connections with people. So I think all of this stuff makes sense. So as a psychiatrist, you know, I'm very familiar with things that are not technically scientifically true that also can be very helpful to people. So other examples of this may be like religion.
Live at
where
work
religion,
would be
like,
wild.
I know this is like dangerous territory, but I don't know if there's any scientific existence for any scientific proof for the existence of God. At least I haven't seen it. If you disagree, please post something. I'm not saying that God isn't real. I'm just saying that I haven't seen any scientific existence of it.
Whoa, Dr. K. Whoa. Good sleep. Don't be like my online friends in Finland. Defeat the anti-sleep demons. Is this like a Finland stereotype or something that I'm not privy to? And I will. I just keep, telling myself like one more hour. I told myself I'd only do 1 hour, and now I'm telling myself I'm going to do 2, and I will do 2. And there's nothing you can do about it. I'm going to do 2 hours. And what? And what are you going to do about it?
And as a psychiatrist, my approach is like, hey, whatever works for the patient. So the patient is an atheist. That can be a belief structure that's very helpful. If a patient is a theist, that can be a belief structure that's very helpful. There are studies that show that having a religious disposition or a spiritual disposition can be adaptive and
I'm going to keep pausing. I just need to say about religion. No, that's just how my friends act. Okay, well now I'm going to assume that of every person who's from Finland. And it's your fault. I wanted to say that he's talking about religion and how, like, things can be untrue or can be, like, false, but can also be helpful. And I've thought about that sometimes. I live in a weird, like, Canadian Bible Belt, is kind of what I'll call it. And I literally have, like, 5 churches within 20-minute walking distance from my residence, okay? So I have thought about it sometimes where I've been like, there's one time I left my ID, my bus pass, on the bus. And I was really like freaking out, like, oh my god, I need this, where is it? And I got a call from one of the churches, and they were like, we have your ID, you should come pick it up. And I was kind of like, in exchange for what? Like, I was a little bit nervous, but then I went in, and like, they were lovely. They were just like, here you go. And I was like, okay, thanks. You're not gonna try and convert me or anything? Have a good day. Okay, so I just went home. And I sort of realized there is an element of religion that I envy. I think Will Neff has talked about this, where, like, if I could do it, I feel like I would, or I feel like I would be better for it if I could subscribe to something like that. Because there is so much healing power in community and divine, like, believing in a divine entity. I believe the healing power of that. I believe that your soul likes it, and I believe that whether or not, it's true, whether or not it is a real thing, I am not here to decide, but I can objectively look at people who go to church in a healthy environment, healthy environment, whether that be LGBTQ plus churches. I know one of my friends goes to one of those, and like, they are just happy. Like, there is an element of happiness that comes from it, from organized religion, and I do envy it, because I maybe someday, but like, that is just something I really do respect. And he just mentioned it there, where it's like, things can be like not provable, but can still be considered like medicinal and helpful. And I feel that way about religion. I envy that. I would love to. I kind of do. Like, in this, I'm a little spiritual, but like, I don't have a person that I pray to. I'm more of like a, do a little tarot and cross my fingers that today doesn't suck kind of thing. Why? How come every time I click on this thing, it
help you be resilient against trauma and all this kind of stuff? So there's a difference between, and this is kind of what I'm saying, there's a difference between the technical truth of something and it being useful for humans and working for them. Okay? But as we will see later, shockingly, astrology may have some technical truth to it in terms of its predictive value. So now that we've looked at sort of the psychological reasons why we may believe in astrology, we also have to look at the counter arguments, right? So what are the broad strokes psychological arguments that say that astrology is basically BS? This is a paper by Bertram Forer. So when people say that astrology is BS, there's actually a Wikipedia page about the Forer effect. And the primary logical, psychological argument of astrology being BS is from this paper. This is the guy who did the experiment that proved that astrology is BS. So if y'all understand science...
Yeah, I just had this exact same conversation with my friend recently. This is almost exactly my stance, except that I think I have too much baggage to ever go back to church again. I think it's very different if you have experience in the church. Like, I think people will have religious trauma that will unfortunately, like, stop them from being able to, as you're saying, will stop them from being able to participate in this, in the positive experience you could get from it. And I think that's one of the unfortunate truths of religion, and one of the unfortunate realities is that that is a common experience. People will have bad experiences. I'm actually going to join the Orthodox Church, God willing. And you know what? Like, I think as long as, like, my friend, she had a lot of religious issues, and she went and found a church that specifically, like, accepts queer people and has, like, a lot of queerness involved in it, and it's probably not perfect, but it's like that kind of helped her heal her relationship with it, and she was able to get back into it. And like, dude, I just wish, you know, religion, astrology, spiritual stuff in general is a very metaphysical manifestation of the material world. Reminds me of Karl Marx, of how religion is a reflection of dramatic, I don't know if you could hear that, anyways, reminds me of Karl Marx, of how religion is a reflection of the material world and condition. Yeah, you're using a lot of references I'm not privy to. You're making me feel a little dumb right now. Religion, astrology, I mean, I think yes. I think so. I feel like Karl Marx is one of those people. He is a figure that I just like I is like very, very much brought up in like the leftist world, and I am but a woman. You know, I read Naomi Klein. I have a book on seduction behind me that I really love. Sorry. No, I love it. I love it. I read your comments and I go, yes, no, I totally, yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. You're making a lot of sense, man. And I mean that.
I want y'all to think for a second about what the problems with this experiment are. The fallacy of personal validation, a classroom demonstration of gullibility. Veterans Administration Mental Hygiene Clinic of Los Angeles, okay? Are there things that you can already see here that we would not accept as valid research in today's day and age? So basically, this is a study that what this guy did was gave people in his class 13 statements that are like vague. And he's like, you have a great need for other people to admire you. You have a tendency to be critical of yourself. You have a great deal of unused capacity, which you have not turned to your advantage. So he made these vague statements. And then he said, how many of these are true? And what he found is that like the most common 10 out of the 13 statements were true for like 10 people. So the majority of people agreed with these statements. And then he kind of concludes that like, okay, like this is the problem with astrology, is that you make these vague statements, you know, or like generally like acceptable, like people will just like lean into. So you're kind of like vague. It's kind of like cold reading and some of these other like BS future reading kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, this is kind of BS. It's just all this ambiguity that goes into astrology. That's why people believe in it, because they make these vague statements that a lot of people will agree with. There are so many methodological problems with this. There's a lot of truth to it, right? So the first thing that we have to say is I cite this study, there's methodological problems in terms of consenting, and you don't do experiments on your students and things like that. I don't know if this was IRB approved, whatever. There are all kinds of problems with this study. But generally speaking, I'd agree, and the Forer effect has been shown in other studies as well, that if you make vague general statements, a lot of people will like agree to them. This is why we use, you know, things like validated questionnaires that are specifically designed to tease apart, like, so we use validated questionnaires in psychiatry, like the PHQ-9, for example, which is a screening test for depression. And the whole point of the PHQ-9 is that it's not vague. It's highly specific, right? So it separates the people who are depressed from the people who are not depressed, or likelihood of being depressed from low likelihood of being depressed. It's technically what the PHQ-9 does. So it's a very unsophisticated experiment is my point. And this also presumes that astrological predictions are always vague. Okay, so now I'm going to give you all so I think that this is a very true bias that human beings have, but it is not a bias that all astrologers use. So here are a couple of common biases that we see with astrology. The first is that they're, very vague. They tend to be positive. So there's another bias where humans are basically arrogant or narcissistic. We all believe we're above average. So if you make some vague statement about, oh yeah, you've got good times ahead, or you're better than the average person, you're exceptional in some way, human beings will agree with that. So the first bias is if it's vague, we'll read into it based on our own projections. So we'll think it's true. Second bias is that we all think we're above average. So if any astrologer says you're special, you'll say yes to that. Third bias is a positive bias, where if I tell you, hey, your life is going to be positive in the future, we want to believe that, so we're more likely to agree with it. So there are all kinds of psychological biases which astrology could absolutely and do absolutely play into with crappy astrologers. Now we get to a really, really, really important point. I got really worried about astrology maybe about 20 years ago. And the reason was I met two astrologers who had eerily accurate predictions. So when you work with a good astrologer, we'll get to what that is in a second. It's all that tables and stuff that we saw. When you work with a good astrologer, they don't make vague statements. So I had, astrologers who were making incredibly accurate predictions. In March of this year, or in March of next year, this negative, this part of your body is going to get infected. You have a high likelihood.
Metaphor to explain my thinking: what we feel or experience doesn't taste good. It's bitter, hard to understand. Astrology and religion are sugar. We can look/taste ourselves more easily. Yeah, that makes sense. It makes the world more digestible. When it's at its core, can be so horrific. So horrific. So unimaginably, unrelentingly horrific. When you get down to the bones of what existence is, a lot of the time is suffering. So I cannot help but respect people who are religious and who are able to find happiness however it comes to them. However that's why I don't that's why if someone really loves doing something with even Labubus, I don't shit on that, because I'm look at them. They have their little Labubu, they're so happy. How can you hate that? How can you hate someone being so happy with their little Labubu? And it's the same thing with sports. I don't get sports. I don't understand why people like to watch other people bounce a little ball around and shoot it in some hoops. I don't get it. But I'm not gonna say that they shouldn't like sports, because look at how happy they are. They're just bouncing their little balls around and they're having a great time. Who am I to rain on their parade? Also, this is where shit gets intense with the astrology. So, by the way, when I first watched this video, because I've seen this video before, pre-watched, when I first watched this video, I didn't understand that there was a version of astrology that wasn't just vague generalizations or stereotypes. I kind of just assumed astrology is stereotyping that tends to be true for some reason, or maybe doesn't for other people, and it's just sort of a generalization. I didn't realize that there was actual astrology. Real astrology is actually more of a statistical likelihood. Statistically based on the stars, you are more likely to have this very specific thing happen. And anyways, I'm gonna play it because I can't explain it better than our Lord and Savior, Dr. K. My savior. I can say that for real. He is so helpful. I highly recommend him if you're ever looking to explore more about mental health and stuff like that. I love Dr. K. And most of it free. He has gone a lot of his recent stuff has been targeted more towards incels, which I don't think is a bad thing, because obviously incels need help. But it definitely isn't targeted towards me as much anymore. I'm not exactly his target demographic, but a lot of his older stuff is more broadly targeted, and I like it.
Of this part of your body getting infected. So be careful in March of this year, protect this part of your body. And I was like, that's not, that's not the Forer effect kind of stuff. That's like really, really like very like concrete kind of stuff. Then I developed what I thought was a really great test for astrology, which disables so many of the biases. If an astrologer can predict your life from a birth chart, forget about the future, because the moment that the future happens, we have all kinds of biases that enter into the picture. I want my future to be good. This could happen. Maybe they make a vague statement. I make some future statement, future event fit a vague prediction. Fair enough. So what I do when I work with an astrologer is that I ask them to tell me about my past. Tell me about the last 5 years of my life and be as specific as possible. This is my test for an astrologer. So when you're looking retrospectively, right? So if I just give you my like name and my date of birth, and actually not even my name, my date of birth and my location, I don't even give my name. Sometimes I'll give them the first letter of my first name. That's it. I want you to tell me about the last 5 years of my life. I want you to tell me, like, just with this information, am I married? Do I have kids? Like, tell me about myself. So what I found is that when I do this test with astrologers, I can quickly separate out the BS astrologers from the good ones. I've had some astrologers who will be very specific. They're like, between September and, November of this year, rough period, you had these kinds of problems, financial problems. And next year, you had legal problems between these 2 or 3 months. More likely to be legal, more likely to be this. They're not always 100% definitive. And I've been stunned because and then I got worried, right? Because I was like, this is like weird. These people are making predictions, like don't seem to be fitting into these biases. Does this mean astrology is real? Hold on a second. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't put words in my mouth. We're going to look at a lot of data that shows astrology is BS too. We're going to look at everything, okay? This is the part of the video where I think we have to like separate out like what astrology really is, or like what I think good astrology is from bad astrology. A lot of people think that astrology is like year of the dog, for example. Like let's take like Chinese zodiac, where like some very surface level Chinese zodiac stuff is like if you're born in the year of the dog, this is your personality, which presumes that everyone who's born in the same year has the same personality. And then you'll have these like, newsletter, e-zine, Instagram, whatever the Capricorns, if you're a Capricorn in this month, this is going to happen. So if we say that there's like 12 or 13 birth signs, I don't even know how many birth signs there are.
Thank you for joining, Rihanna.
If we say there are 12 or 13, I don't think that 8% of the population is going to have the same like future for this month. Right? That doesn't make any scientific sense to me. And a good astrologer will tell you the same thing. Like I've talked to astrologers who like have made good predictions. I was like, bro, how does this work? Like, how are you able to do this? Tell me about like, if people say like, oh, if you're a Gemini this month, like look for love. I'm like, what's the difference between what they do and what you do? And they're like, well, that's like really generic, right? It's like generic advice. 8% of the population doesn't have the same future. Like that just doesn't make sense. So I said, how does it work? And he said, here's the way that I'd like to explain it to you. So what he said to me is like, imagine you have a phone number, right? So let's say your phone number is 10 digits. If I dial the first 9 digits of your phone number, and then I dial the last digit of your phone number, I get to you, right? I connect to you. Now, if I change one of the 10 digits by 10%, let's say the last digit in your phone number is a 0, and I change it to a 1, and I dial all the other numbers the same, where do I end up? With a completely different human being. So a good astrologer explained to me that this is why we need to know your date of birth, your time of birth, and your location of birth. And if even one of those variables changes by 10%, the birth chart that you can get can be completely different. So there is a lot of variability between people. No two people have the same birth chart. No two people you can't make generic astrological predictions based on just the sun sign. The good astrologers are using a highly, highly technical, highly specific way to make predictions. Now, the second thing to talk about is does astrology tell you the future? Does it make concrete predictions? And this is where the astrologers that I've worked with that I think are good are like, it's not like a prediction, it's a probability. So what the birth chart tells you is like tendencies of forces in your life. So astrology is highly specific. So it's like your birth chart is unique. There's no generic stuff for all Geminis. That I consider to be BS astrology, but I'm not an expert in astrology. If you're an expert in astrology, you're like, yeah, that is true. Here's why. And then fine, you can add it in the comments and we can talk about it. That's basically how astrology works. It's like highly technical. So now let's look at some papers and let's see what we actually find. The validity of astrological predictions on marriage and divorce, a longitudinal analysis of Swedish register data. Cool, huh? Like, this is neat. Someone actually looked at like Swedish registry data and said, can we figure this out? The results fail to provide any consistent evidence to support the notion that astrologically more compatible couples are either overrepresented among observed marital unions or associated with a lower risk of divorce. Now, here's a paper from the International Journal of Jyotish Research. Comparison of Vedic astrology birth charts of celebrities with ordinary people, an empirical study. So this is a cool study. The study is like, in some birth charts, we say, you are going to be very famous. You have sun in your first house? You're going to be famous one day. Oh. So they said, okay, cool. Like, so if sun in the first house correlates with people being famous, we should be able to look at a bunch of famous people and we should find sun in the first house or whatever the fuck, right? If principles we have tested were true, we should have seen significant differences in the total negativity or positivity of at least one planet, house or lord of the house in the test, but there were none. Thus, our results prove that neither of these principles are valid individually nor in combination. Two of our earlier experiments on similar lines for other pairs of groups, namely mentally disabled versus intelligent and cancer versus no cancer, have shown similar results for the same set of principles. It shows just how invalid they are across the board and beyond any doubt. Since the principles we tested are something that one cannot do away with, in the everyday practice of astrology, their invalidity proven through our test raises many questions about the accuracy of predictions of Vedic astrology in general and in career in particular. So this person was like, look, y'all, you guys claim, y'all astrologers claim that there's all this complicated crap. So here's what I'm going to do. Here are all the principles that y'all claim are true. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take all these principles, aggregate data analysis. I'm going to do t-tests. One-tailed t, these are tailed t-tests. And what I'm going to find is that we can do all of these mathematical analyses. We can aggregate all of this data, percent of average number of rules complied with. If you comply with all the rules, like this person complied with 59% of the rules, are they a celebrity? Are they not a celebrity? So they did this again for astrological charts of cancer disease persons versus people who never had it. So like, okay, if y'all can make predictions that if you've got this crap in this house at this time, and by the way, the house and the time is like this diagram, y'all. Like, so if I've got like Taurus and Venus over here in this in my chart, this means I'm going to be famous. This means I'm going to have cancer. So they have all these rules. That's how they make their predictions. And they're like, let's test the rules. And what we tend to find is that what they did the same thing, same kind of study, right? So they figured out one methodology. They applied the methodology. They found that it didn't have any weight to it, right? Didn't show anything that astrology could make any predictions. Applied it to cancer. So this is good. They're thorough. They applied it to cancer. They applied it to celebrity, and they applied it to like one other thing. I forget what they said, right? This isn't some vague generalized prediction. This is like y'all say like, oh, it's so complicated. Like it's so detailed. You got to do all these calculations. You got to make all these birth charts. Okay, fine. We're going to look at all your principles. We're going to take a bunch of people. We're going to average everything together, and we're going to find that there is no emergent effect. Let's look at one other thing. So this is important. The methodology is important. So here is what this study actually looked at, is looking at information on the date of birth. We determined the zodiac sign of both the index individual and their spouse, yielding 144 zodiac sign combinations. So they basically look at which sign are you? Are you a Gemini? Did you marry a Capricorn? If you were a Gemini, you married a Capricorn. Are you a Capricorn, you married a Gemini? Are you a Taurus who married an Aries? Are you an Aries who married a Capricorn? So they basically did sun sign of you and sun sign of your spouse and compared the two, and they said basically it's BS, okay? So now let's take a look at some other papers. Prediction of mental illness using Indian astrology. Cross-sectional findings from a prospective study. Interesting. Studies involving astrology and psychiatry have mostly found conflicting results, with astrology being criticized as unscientific and also lacking an objective assessment method for being scientifically tested. We tested the predictive ability of astrology using the Indian system in identifying mental illness on 150 subjects. 75 with illness, and 75 without. 4 astrologers, blind to the subjects, interpreted the computer-generated birth chart derived from the subject's gender, date, time, place of birth. Predictions were matched with clinical details at the first assessment. Kappa coefficient suggested a moderate agreement, so this is an important research thing. This means that they had 4 astrologers do this, and they found that astrologers basically agree with each other pretty well. So the astrologers didn't disagree, so there's internal consistency. Doesn't mean that their predictions were accurate. Do y'all understand the difference? It's like if I ask 4 psychiatrists to evaluate from ADHD, how much agreement is there? That's not whether they could all be wrong or they could all be right. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how consistent is the prediction, not how accurate. Okay, so viewed as a diagnostic test, astrology showed a good sensitivity and specificity for identifying mental illness of more than 75% of people for lifetime mental illness, and more than 80% for the current mental illness. However, the study showed a poor match in predicting the symptom cluster and the time of onset of symptoms. So this is crazy, okay? Like, this is nuts. Sample size of 150 people that is showing that 4 astrologers can predict the presence of mental illness in your lifetime. Now that may be, let's take a look at when this study was. This is 2018, pre-pandemic, right? Because now it's like, easy to predict. Everyone's mentally ill. This is 2 years pre-pandemic, back when things were good. They're able to predict lifetime of mental illness and whether you're currently mentally ill 80% of the time, although they're not able to predict what kind of mental illness do you have. So are you depressed? Are you anxious? Do you have schizophrenia, PTSD? They're like, we don't know. Or their predictions were not accurate, we should say. So like, that's really interesting. Like, how do we make sense of that, right? So they're blinded. It's a prospective study. They're blinded. We had 4 of them test and the sample size is pretty big. Okay, now another dissertation. Applications of astrology to health psychology, psychological and astrological factors, and fertility treatment outcome. So as a psychiatrist, the number one reason why women that I work with pursue astrology is fertility. This is the most anxiety-provoking thing for women that gets them into astrology and acupuncture and all kinds of other stuff. So this is a dissertation that is looking at fertility predictions based on astrological factors. Data set of 114 treatments experienced by 27 women. So small sample size, it's a dissertation. Data set was divided into 2 groups. Successful outcome, where successful outcome is defined as baby resulting from treatment, and failed outcome. Contacts of Venus, Jupiter associated in traditional astrology with fertility and childbirth were compared for presence and absence at the time of fertility treatment outcome for both groups. So I think what this paper is, what this dissertation is looking at is when you administer fertility treatment, if Venus and Jupiter are in the right spot for your chart, does it predict the success of fertility treatment? If you'll need to rewind the video and listen to that sentence again, you can. Okay, so fertility treatment, presence and absence at the time of fertility treatment outcome for both groups. So I think what this paper is, what this dissertation is looking at is when you administer fertility treatment, if Venus and Jupiter are in the right spot for your chart, does it predict the success of fertility treatment? If you'll need to rewind the video and listen to that sentence again, you can. Okay, so now it's like, okay, when we give you fertility treatment, if Venus and Jupiter are in the right place, does it impact your treatment? Secondary progression and transit systems were used, and it was found that major beneficial contacts were significantly likely to be present at times of treatment resulting in birth of live baby. Astrological indicators of reproductive problems were then compared between a group of women with history of fertility problems and people with no known history. Presence of the factors in the fertility group was significant. So if your birth chart shows presence of fertility problems, the prediction here is 0.0019, a p-value of less than 0.05, which means it's statistically significant. So that's a strong finding, okay? This paper also looked at psychological factors, personal depression, clinic location, astrological factors, and like this is kind of nuts. In study 2, when comparing study 2 fertility treatment women with study 1 control group, non-fertility treatment women with no reported history, they basically found the presence of fertility treatment history was replicated. So that's statistically significant as well. So why do women believe in astrology? That's the question we started with like an hour ago. And I gotta say, y'all, I think like astrology is one of these things where it comes down to this basic problem of the people who are studying it don't understand it. And the people who really understand it aren't doing research studies. So it's starting to change some, especially if we look at so I was looking at Hindu astrology, like Vedic astrology. I think that like when I look at the studies in more detail, here's what I find. So astrology is, if you look at studies where you have astrologers examining an individual's birth chart and they are making specific predictions, those studies are small dissertations, small sample sizes, very few of these studies published. They're showing a scary level of predictability. If you look at studies that are studying astrology by aggregating or averaging astrological effects, those studies are negative. But I want y'all to understand, this is very, very, very important, right? This is where you have to understand research methodology. These two things are not the same kind of study at all. One is using the actual astrological methods to make predictions and then testing that against what happened in the real world. The other is taking theories of astrology, like if you have the sun in this house and I average together like 100 people, does the sun in this house have this aggregate effect that we can detect at a population level? Those studies are negative. Now, does astrology work? Depends on how you define work. So there are plenty of psychological reasons like projection and self-concept and like managing uncertainty where it seems like astrology has therapeutic value. There are also plenty of things like the Forer effect. I think the original experiment is trash. But since then, there have been hundreds or thousands or millions of experiments that show that astrology is prone to all of these biases. But I think the kind of astrology that is prone to bias is the same kind of astrology that shows negative effects when researched, which is these broad strokes. If you're a Gemini, and by the way, all of the other Geminis, the 8% of the people on the planet who are also Geminis, y'all all have the same future. Y'all are all going to win the lottery this month. Doesn't work. It's BS. So I think there's psychological confounders that cause people to believe in astrology. I think there are psychological reasons that are very valid, which bring astrology a lot of value. And I think it's kind of creepy that there are some studies that show that astrology can make real predictions that are pretty good. And that's what I've seen in my life too, that like I've seen both. I've seen 10 astrologers. 8 of them are trash. They're like, oh, you're going to be happy after you overcome hardship. And a couple of them are like, bruh, be careful where you put your dick this month because, the person that you have the opportunity to sleep with may have an STI. And it's like, what the fuck, man? That's an actual prediction you're making in my life? And like, it's wild.
Damn, Dr.
Okay?
K.
So what does this mean for you? This means, first of all, we're a community that values critical thinking.
We sure do value critical thinking. Thank you, Dr. K. Thank you so much for that. I would continue watching if I wasn't so tired. So tired. My eyes just kept watering. Kept watering and watering and watering during the video. I'm like... And it's so funny, Dr. K uses words all the time where he goes, you need to understand this. You need to understand this point. And this is the point I need you to understand. And it's so funny because at the back of my head, like, I'm zoning out and I'm like, yes, Dr. K, what do you want me to know? I have to tune right back in. Best detour ever. He's really good at zapping me back. He's built these for my brain. He knows that the people watching, and he does. He's a psychiatrist. He knows that the people watching are all riddled with ADHD. Like, their brains are melted from the internet. They have no attention span. They are pretty dumb. Pretty dumb when you think about it at the end of the day. But, like, are trying their best. And that's what Dr. K is for. And he's a really good job of it. Anyways, thank you so much for watching today. This has been a lot of fun. I will be back tomorrow. And I plan to be here every tomorrow. Every tomorrow that there is, I plan to be here. So, if you're around, join me. Hey. And that's what it's all about. At the end of the day. I need to sleep. You like my giant stuffed dog? He's really big, actually. I'll show you. Oh god, I almost ripped my laptop off of the desk. He's huge. Alright, good night. Hold on, I'm actually gonna put on a song, like a little lo-fi first, so it's not just like an abrupt ending. Give me like 3 seconds. I'll put on some good. There we go. Why is this kind of sad?